In this podcast, you'll learn vocabulary and expressions connected to hairdressing and hair salons. So sit back in the stylist's chair, close your eyes and relax as we tell you all you need to know about cutting hair and getting your hair cut. Welcome to the podcast that is a cut above the rest. It's
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello, if this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, you're very, very welcome. And if you've listened before, welcome back. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with 50 years of teaching English between us, Reza and I will help you improve your English and take it to the next level. Why did you laugh at the beginning, Reza, when I said it's a cut above the rest?
I wasn't expecting it, and I thought it was a very good pun. A pun is playing with words, because we're talking about hairdressers where they cut your hair, so a cut above is like superior quality.
Well, I do think that doing this podcast is like a breath of fresh hair.
Oh dear. Not fresh air, but fresh hair.
First this week we have a voice message from Valeria from Argentina, and this is the first time that Valeria has sent us a message.
Hi Reza, hi Greg. This is Valeria from Argentina. I've been listening to your podcast for more than a year. I really enjoy it. I can't really tell how I found it, but I'm glad I did. I think it's a great way to improve my English. It's really funny and I laugh with your laughter every time. I have a question for you. I've heard the expression everybody do, but I think it's incorrect. I'm quite confused. I think it's everybody does, everybody speaks, and also I have problems with conditionals, especially the third one. I would love you to help me. Well, I think that's enough for my first time. Thank you very much again. Bye-bye, guys.
Well, thank you very, very much, Valeria, for your first message. I think that you sounded absolutely wonderful. I loved your pronunciation. And your word stress particularly caught my attention. For example, you said, I can't really tell how I sounded. And you stressed that word in a lovely way. So congratulations, especially on your pronunciation. Any comments, Reza?
I would say exactly the same as Craig, Valeria. Especially for your first message. That was really, really clear. Your pronunciation is very, very good. And you didn't make a single mistake as far as I can see.
No, and more than not making a mistake, you gave us €5 back because you said, I've been listening to. Now, if you are a new listener to this podcast, we have been given €100. Well, we have been promised €100, but every time one of the listeners sends a message or writes an email and forgets to use that preposition to after listen, we lose €5. And that goes down and down and down and down. And at the end of the year, we're not going to have any money to go out and have a nice meal together. But luckily, and I knew this was going to happen, we trusted you, our listeners, and we've been pushed back up to €100 thanks to Valeria. So we appreciate remembering that preposition too.
Yes, thanks, Valeria. Because at the end of the year, we'll use the money to treat ourselves to a meal. And if we have plenty of money, if we still have the €100, we can go out and have a nice Argentinian steak. If we don't have so much money, we'll have to get a Big Mac.
At McDonald's, yeah.
I'd rather have an Argentinian steak myself.
So would I. So keep it up, keep going. It's fantastic. And remember that preposition too, because you're helping yourself with your English and you're helping Reza and I with the steak. Apologies to any vegetarians or vegans out there. Now, your question, Valeria, is it everybody do or everybody does. Do you remember that song by REM? Everybody hurts.
Oh, of course,
Everybody hurts sometimes.
Yeah, classic.
So it's third person, isn't it? Everybody, everyone.
Everybody, although it refers to various people, always goes with a singular verb. It's as simple as that. Everybody with the third person singular does.
Everyone or everybody does. Now, you also asked about conditionals. We have spoken in the past about conditional sentences, specifically the third conditional. We spoke about that in episode 30, so go to inglespodcast.com/30. And with very similar grammar, the expressions if only and I wish, if only I had, I wish I could. So for mixed conditional sentences and the grammar after if only and I wish, that's the next one, 31. So inglespodcast.com/31. I hope those 2 episodes, Valeria, will help you. If you still have questions or doubts after listening to those 2 episodes, please send us your second message and ask us any questions you might have.
Okay, let's get down to the main topic of today's episode.
Let's cut to the quick.
Cut to the quick, good expressions. So we're talking about cutting hair. Cut to the quick. Let's get down to business. Hairdressing. That's what we're going to talk about. Because Monica from Madrid, she requested vocabulary connected with hairdressing and hair salons.
Yeah, she didn't say in her email, but I suspect Monica may have a hair salon, so she might be in the industry. Although I'm pretty sure she's not a barber, barber, because barbers do cut hair, but they tend to cut men's hair rather than women's hair, don't they, Reza?
Yeah, for me personally, I would only really use the expression barber for a person who cuts men's hair, but you could also call them a hairdresser, or you could call that person a hairstylist. I wonder what you prefer to be called, Monica, if you work in the profession. Have you any preference between hairdresser, hairstylist, or indeed barber?
Do you know who invented the haircut?
No.
The barbarians.
Very good. That's a good one. I like that.
And why should you never have a race with a barber?
I don't know.
He'll always take the shortcut.
Oh.
I've been researching my barber jokes, my hairdressing jokes, especially for this episode. Now, in the introduction, I said everything you need to know about cutting hair and getting your hair cut. Let's talk a little about the causative in English. Reza, do you cut your own hair by yourself, or do you get it cut? And what's the difference?
I get or have my hair cut. I don't do it myself because I don't know how to. I'm not a trained hairdresser and I have no idea how to even use one of those machines that some people use at home. I can't do it. I'm not very good. So I have my hair cut. What about you?
Well, I don't know how to cut my own hair, but that doesn't stop me, because during the pandemic, the lockdown because of COVID, I bought hair clippers, and that's one of the words on our vocab list, electric hair clippers, and I cut my hair myself, which is why it's looking particularly bad at the moment, and that's why we're doing a podcast and not video. So yeah, I cut my own hair. You can get your hair cut, as Reza said, or you can have your hair cut, and that's how you form the causative. Get is a little more informal, so you don't do it, but you get it done by someone. It's very similar to the passive.
Yes, it's interesting that for those of you who speak Spanish, you don't make a distinction. In Spanish, you say, me voy a cortar el pelo, and that could mean that you're going to have your hair cut by a hairdresser, or it could mean that you're going to cut it yourself. In Spanish, you don't distinguish, but in English, you have to distinguish. You have to make it clear whether you are doing it or you're paying someone to do it.
What do you call a long line of men waiting for a haircut?
I don't know.
A barbecue.
Oh, very good. That's good. I like it. Because a queue is a line of people. Barbecue. Very good.
When was the last time you got your hair cut? It's looking quite long.
As you can see, a long time ago. I'm glad in a way that we aren't on video because my hair is very long. I haven't had it cut in months. It's pretty noticeable, isn't it?
Is there a reason for that? You've been busy or?
The reason is laziness. Sheer laziness.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same with me. Even though I don't have it cut, I cut it myself. I've been too lazy to charge up the clippers and take them out the drawer and cut my hair, but I will do it this week because I look like a wild man from the forest. If you don't want to cut your hair very much, you just want to keep it clean, keep it tidy, you could trim your hair. And keen listeners of the podcast will notice that we're looking at verbs at the moment. We're looking at verbs or actions connected to cutting your hair. So to cut someone's hair and to trim someone's hair is to cut it just to make it look cleaner and nicer.
Now, whether you cut your hair or not, to keep it looking good, you have to brush it or to comb it. So they're similar, but not exactly the same, but they have the same kind of effect. Brush is cepillo in Spanish. So a brush is a bit wider than a comb. C-O-M-B, comb, is peine. And those words can be both nouns, a brush, a comb, or the verb, the action, to brush or to comb your hair. And if you comb out your hair, so phrasal verb, it's slightly different. If you comb out your hair, it's the idea that it's kind of very disordered. It's tangled. T-A-N-G-L-E-D. It's not straight. If it should be straight, it's all kind of mixed up. It's got knots in it. Nudos. So to comb out is the idea of comb it until it becomes nice and straight and organized again.
Actually, one of the hairdressers in this area just around the corner got broken into last week. We spoke about break into last week when we spoke about crime, but somebody broke into the hairdressers and they stole some equipment and they robbed the hairdressers. But police are combing the area. Hopefully they'll find us.
Okay, I see what you're doing there. So what's to comb the area?
To comb the area, not comb your hair, but the same word, silent B. To comb the area is to look around the area to try and find the criminals. So police are combing the area. They're looking in all the houses. They're looking in all the roads and the streets to find the robbers.
Now, hairdressers like Monica, who presumably is a hairdresser, have many techniques. One is to back comb. So you can comb your hair forward or comb it to one side or do lots of other things. To back comb is the idea of combing it so that it kind of goes back on itself so it will stick up. It will go up. You back comb. Do you back comb your hair, Craig?
No, I don't. I don't even cut it at the moment, so back combing is a bit more advanced for me.
Do you part your hair?
No, I don't part my hair. Now, that's another interesting verb, another action that you can do to your hair, because if you think about it, parts, you have one part, you have two parts. The verb to part is to divide something. You can part something in two halves, for example. And to part your hair is to take a comb or a brush and make a parting. If you make the parting in the center of your hair, it's a center parting. And if you make the parting on one side of your hair, it's a side parting. And you can ask for those things in the hairdresser. Can I have a center parting, please? Can you part my hair on the left or on the right?
Craig, I'm going to get my revenge on you with a really bad joke. A man goes into a butcher shop and he says, "Hello, good morning. Have you got a sheep's head?" And what does the butcher reply? "No, it's just the way I part my hair." Dear, oh dear.
Yep, that's definitely one for you. So, yeah, you've scored one there back. Scored one back to me. When we speak about hair, we can layer hair. L-A-Y-E-R. Now, layer is a verb and a noun. Let's think at the moment of a cake if you make a cake, you may have the sponge and then a layer of jam and then another layer of sponge. And then if you're me, there'll be a layer of chocolate. So if you're a Spanish speaker, that's capas, that's different layers on the cake. Or if you make a lasagna, you have layers of pasta, layers of meat, and layers of cheese. In a similar way, you can layer your hair. So you have different levels of hair that are attractively layered on your head.
Now that was quite a complicated explanation because it was a complicated word. The next word couldn't be easier. To fix. It doesn't really mean anything.
Repair.
Does it? Or it just means kind of do something with your hair, right? For me, I associate it very much with particularly 1950s Hollywood films. Oh my God, look, I've been out in the rain, said the lady. I've got to fix my hair. Ladies fix their hair. So something's happened to their hair. It's not in place. So they got to fix it. They got to do things so that it looks better. It doesn't mean anything in particular. It just means it's unacceptable the way it is. You've got to do something to make it look better. You fix your hair.
I think it can also mean, and ladies, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you finish your hairstyle, to fix your hair is also putting hairspray on your hair so that it doesn't move. So fixer would be something that holds something in place. I think it's also used in that way, but I'm not too sure.
Now, one thing that not many ladies do, but a few do, but it's more typical of some gentlemen, is to crop your hair. Because that is to cut it very short. So if you crop your hair, you're taking away most of the hair. We're not talking about a skinhead necessarily. Doesn't have to be that short, but we mean short. So to crop your hair is to cut it short.
If you have long hair, you can braid or plait your hair. Let me spell those for you. Remember, you can see these words in the show notes, inglespodcast.com/413 for this episode. Braid is B-R-A-I-D and plait is P-L-A-I-T. And that means to take 2 or 3 pieces of your long hair and put one over the other so that you end up with a tight kind of ribbon of hair, and then you can fix it with an elastic band or a hair tie. So you're making an attractive pattern with your hair, and it also keeps the hair out of your eyes or out of your face if you're working. By the way, there's I know you're a Star Wars fan. There's a themed Star Wars hairdresser in London. Have you been there?
No, never heard of it.
Yeah, it's called Darth Braider.
Very good.
So to braid your hair or plait your hair is to put long hair in a manageable and attractive form.
So we've been talking about some ways of cutting or arranging your hair, but you could also shave it. In other words, take all of it off. So to shave it means that you take off as much hair as you can. Well, I say there's no hair. Technically, there's a little bit of hair. But for example, if you got a skinhead, that would be because you shaved off all your hair. So you can shave your face, you can shave your legs, and you can shave your hair.
Have you ever shaved off all your hair?
Never all of it, no. I've got pretty short. I've cropped it back a lot, but I've never shaved it completely. What about you?
No, I've always wanted to. Maybe I'll do that this week. I've always fancied being completely hairless
You're going to go for a skinhead?
Maybe I might go for a skinhead. Yeah, maybe I will. Now, one common request when you go into a hairdresser's is to ask for a wash and blow dry. Obviously, that's quite a basic thing. You get your hair washed by the hairdresser. There's that causative expression again, to have your hair washed, and then blow dried with a hairdryer. So obviously you don't want to leave the hairdresser with wet hair, so you ask for a wash and blow dry.
Have you ever done that?
No.
No, I'm just far too mean. I don't like spending money to get a wash and blow dry. I get a cut, but I think, well, pay someone just to wash my hair. I can't part with the money. I can't do it.
Skinflint.
Skinflint, yeah. I've also never got highlights or even lowlights.
What's the difference between highlights and lowlights?
Good question. I had to kind of check about this. So highlighting is to add a little bit of color to some bits of your hair so that they stand out, destacar.
And
which
they're
is the
usually
highlight.
lighter than the original color. So if you're
Usually.
dark, they would be blonde highlights, yeah? Or red.
So what would lowlights be then? Is that if you got light color hair and you put in darker color?
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's not a word that you hear half as often as highlights, but there is the possibility of lowlights as well.
So low lights, you've got fair hair or blonde hair and you put a darker color in.
Yeah, and the idea then that it doesn't stand out so much. Darker colors stand out less than brighter colors. To stand out, to highlight.
If you have curly hair, you can make it straight. And this probably won't be a surprise to you that the verb of straight is to straighten. To make something straight is to straighten. So if you want your hair straightened, then they'll probably use some tool to straighten your hair and remove the curls. But you can also do the opposite, can't you?
Yeah, you can curl your hair. So the word curl can be a noun or it can be a verb. If you put a lot of curls in your hair and you want them to stay there for a long time, that would be to perm. P-E-R-M. Actually, it's short for permanent, but nobody ever uses the long version. We always say to get a perm, or I'm going to perm my hair. And it can also be a noun. You have a perm.
If you want to change the color of your hair, the verb you need is to dye. That's not to stop breathing. That's not D-I-E. That's D-Y-E. So different spelling, but exactly the same pronunciation. Can you dye my hair, please? Or can you tint my hair? T-I-N-T. The difference is dyeing is completely changing the color totally, and tinting is just to give a suggestion of a different color. So it's a lot softer.
Now, something I always have to ask the hairdresser to do when I go there is to thin out my hair.
You're lucky.
I guess I am, yeah. My hair grows back very thick, so I don't necessarily want them to make it much shorter. It's not a question of the length, but the question of the thickness. I want them to take away some of the thickness, and they have special scissors for this. So scissors, tijeras, S-C-I-S-S-O-R-S. They're a tool. We'll talk more about their tools in a minute. So they have special scissors to thin out the hair, which means to take away some of the volume.
So we will speak a little now about specific products and tools that you can find in a hairdresser. And this will be specifically useful for people like Monica who work in a hair salon. We mentioned blow drying before. Of course, to do blow drying, you need a hair dryer. And we mentioned straightening your hair, and the tool is a straightener. So hair straighteners will straighten your hair. And of course, Reza just mentioned the word scissors.
And of course, the opposite of straightening, curling, you'll need a tool for that. You'll need curling tongs, T-O-N-G-S. They're the things that heat up your hair to make it curl, curling tongs. Another product you might need are clippers or trimmers. Craig, did you say you have your own clippers, your own trimmers?
Yes, I bought my own clippers off the internet when I could not go to the hairdresser here in Spain because of the lockdown. And I continue to cut my hair. So I don't have it cut. I cut my hair with clippers or electric trimmers.
So basically, clippers or trimmers, they're the equivalent of an electric razor for men's faces, but what you put on your head. So they're not scissors, it's a machine. But it's for your head, it's not for your face. Don't confuse clippers with clips. Not the same thing, and also very common. Hair clips are simply things that you put in your hair. You open it up, usually some way, put the hair in, and then let it close, and it will keep a certain piece of hair somehow separate from the rest. So, for example, if you've got very long hair, you might put a clip in a bit at the top in the middle to kind of keep it away from the rest. You'll use a hair clip for that.
And there are other ways or methods and tools that you can use to keep your hair in place, especially if it's particularly long. So apart from the hair clips that Reza mentioned, there are hair pins And a pin is a long kind of needle that goes through your hair and holds it in place. Hair bands. Bands are pieces of material. Think of the word rubber band. And a hairband will also go around your hair in a way that's very tight and keep your hair in place. And things that you can tie in your hair. Well, we have ribbons, R-I-B-B-O-N, ribbon in your hair. Or a bow. You can make a bow, B-O-W, out of ribbon. Reza, what's a reza?
What's a razor? What's a razor? I'm a razor. I'm a razor, but I'm not a razor.
Different pronunciation.
Yes, although some people have called me razor. R-A-Z-O-R. A razor is that object which you use to shave, afeitar, shave, so more than just cut. It could be your hair, could be your face, could be your legs. So it could be an electric razor, or it could be an old-fashioned razor, which is just a piece of sharp metal which goes across the surface of your skin.
What do you use to shave? Do you shave with an electric razor, or do you shave with water and shaving foam?
An electric razor? I use an electric razor or razor. Yeah, I use an electric razor usually. What about you?
Both. I use an electric razor when I don't have time. Am I pronouncing it wrong?
You said razor all the time, yeah?
I use an electric razor when... Yeah, razor. That's how I say it, because of my schwa.
Ah, right. Oh, that's interesting.
I don't say razor. You pronounce the r more.
I thought you were taking the mickey a bit.
No, not at all. Not
electric
at all.
razor.
That's how
of course,
Londoners pronounce razor.
Of course. As you know, we got slightly different accents. So Craig has an accent of someone from the southeast of England, which tends to leave out the pronunciation of final R's, whereas in Belfast, like America and a few other places, we say the R more. So how do you say the word?
Which word? Your name or the thing?
No, R-A-Z-O-R.
Razor.
And I say razor. So yeah, for me, there's more of an R sound there, yeah.
Interesting.
And how do you say my name?
Reza. With more of a at the end.
I'll tell you what, say first my name and then say the tool quickly, one then the other.
Reza, razor.
Different but very similar. For me, my name and the tool, it's Reza Razor. So for me, there's a little bit more of a difference, I guess.
There's more of an A in the tool.
Yeah.
Razor.
By the way, many people have also called me a tool, but we won't go into that. We'll leave that for another episode.
So let's move on to ways of conditioning your hair and make it look lovely and shiny, like a healthy dog. So we've got shampoo, which I think is an Indian word originally, isn't it? Shampoo comes from the Indian language. And conditioner, which obviously conditions your hair, and you can have conditioning shampoo because we like having our lives made easier, so why not combine shampoo to clean your hair and conditioner to make it look nice?
Craig, do you often use conditioner?
I don't often use it, but I do use it sometimes because from time to time, and it's probably connected to the weather, my hair gets a bit dry, so I use a bit of conditioner to like they say in the advertisements, put some life back into my hair.
What about hair gel? Would you use that often?
No, I don't like these products that go in your hair after you've washed it, like hair gel and hair mousse and hair cream. I don't like messing with those in my hair. Do you use them?
No, I don't like that. I feel the same as you. After I've washed my hair, I think, well, why am I going to put something sticky in there?
Why would you waste a good chocolate mousse by putting it in your hair?
Exactly.
I just don't understand these people.
And what about hairspray, or some people call it lacquer, L-A-C-Q-E-R, which is to make your hair stay in place so it fixes the style. Would you ever use that?
No, never used that in my life. No.
Have you ever seen somebody who had hairspray on and their hair went on fire? I've actually seen it.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
Where did you see it?
It's kind of a cliche, but it's true because hairspray is very, very flammable.
Yes, it is.
And you have to be careful. And I've seen a couple of times in my life, actually, somebody with a lot of hairspray and a lot of hair near a naked flame, like a fire or a candle, and their hair like started to burn.
Wow.
Just slightly. Yeah.
That's scary. That's
Yeah.
very scary. Let's move on to a different section now and speak about types of hair, because we all have different kinds of hair, different types of hair, don't we? You can have thick hair, and I would say that Reza's hair is quite thick. That is why he has it thinned when he goes to the hairdresser. So thick hair is one kind of hair. You can also have thin hair, which is obviously the opposite. What other types of hair can people have?
You can have obviously short hair or long hair. Or if you want to be a bit more exact or you're not quite sure, it could be in the middle, could be medium length. So length there is the noun, Length. We put that after the word medium with a hyphen, medium length. So it's neither long or short. Or you could be very specific and say it's shoulder length. So it goes down to your shoulder. The hair ends where your shoulder is. That's shoulder length. Now, Craig, you mentioned that my hair is quite thick, and it is. But have you noticed that it doesn't really get very long? I haven't cut it in a long time, but it just doesn't get long. It just keeps getting thicker and thicker, but it won't grow. I can never look like a rock star. It just won't go long.
I think you look a little bit like a rock star, especially with the beard. But you could call your hair bushy when it thickens out like that. A bush in the garden is a small tree, and bushy hair is very full head of hair, so quite bushy. We used the verb to curl hair before if it's straight, and to straighten hair when it's curly. Obviously, the adjectives are very similar. So you can have curly hair, you can have straight hair, and you can have wavy hair. Think of the sea when there are waves in the sea. So it's not exactly curly, it's not exactly straight, it's somewhere in the middle. It's wavy hair.
I would say my hair is a bit wavy at the minute just because it's long.
Yeah, it's waving at me from the other side of the desk.
When my hair is short, it's straight. But if I let it grow a bit longer, a bit thicker, it starts to get wavy.
Have you ever had a perm?
No, I haven't. What about you?
No, never had a perm.
I think it's starting to come back into fashion, but for women, not for men. I've noticed we're recording in about 2022, so it started about 2021, 2020. I noticed some younger women getting perms, which I hadn't seen for a long time. So it's starting to come back into fashion again.
Luckily, skinheads are not coming back into fashion, because a skinhead, as Reza described earlier, is a person who shaves their head completely. But when I grew up in London, the skinhead movement had a very negative connotation because they were neo-Nazis that dressed in a particular way and were very, very racist. So thankfully, skinheads don't seem to be coming back, at least where we live.
Yeah, but although that doesn't mean that just because you've got a skinhead, if you say I have a skinhead, it just means the haircut. The haircut.
Sinead O'Connor.
Exactly. But it's a totally different matter if you say I am a skinhead.
Yes.
If you are a skinhead, it's like you're talking about the culture, you follow the whole thing which Craig just mentioned. So one thing is to have a skinhead, another thing is to be a skinhead.
When you're giving instructions to your hairdresser, you want to tell them how short to cut your hair. And if you prefer it to be long at the front and long on top, then your instructions would be short back and sides, please. And that's a 3-word collocation that is quite common in hairdressing, especially for men when they go into the hairdresser. I'll have a short back and sides, please. So cut the sides quite short, cut the back quite short, but leave the top and the front a little longer.
Now, a hairstyle which I have to say personally I'm glad is no longer in fashion, but it was for a while, in the 80s particularly, was a mullet. Have you heard of that before?
I've heard of it, but I'm not sure what it is.
A mullet, how can I describe it, is long hair, which was typical for men above all, and it made them look like they had a mullet, which is a type of fish, on the head. It was kind of like a fishy-shaped kind of hairstyle.
It's a bit smelly. Not a real fish, just a kind of fish.
A mullet. By the way, I can tell you what it is in Spanish. It's salmonete. So if you imagine they had a salmonete, a mullet on their head. That was the shape of the hairstyle, and I associate it very much with the 1980s. I wasn't a fan of it. It would be like quite short at the sides, but really long at the top and go way down their neck.
Yeah, I
Not a look I liked.
haven't been a fan of that particular hairstyle. If you are losing your hair, and this happens to men when they often reach middle age or later, then you have hair at the sides of your head, but no hair in the middle. And one way to comb your hair or have your hair cut is to let the sides grow very long and then comb the long hair over the middle of your head. So that's called a comb over. You're combing your hair over your head so that the bald part of your head, the head with no hair, doesn't look so open and so bald.
Think Donald Trump, and you've got the picture, right? He's made it look like hair grows all over his head, but it doesn't. It only grows in certain parts, but you have to skillfully position it to make it look like it's growing everywhere.
And people who have comb-overs, they often have very fine hair, not like yours, not thick and bushy, but very fine.
So fine means not thick. Would you describe your hair, Craig, as dry or greasy?
I'd say both. It tends to move between greasy and dry very quickly. So it could be dry one day, and then if I don't wash my hair for maybe 2 or even 3 days, then it does get very greasy. So it's difficult hair on the hair.
You need to bear this in mind when you buy shampoo or conditioner, because these days they normally specify on the bottle that it's for dry hair, for normal hair, for greasy hair, etc. Now, Craig, we're both lucky so far that we're not bald. I don't particularly want to be bald, although some people are bald and look great. What does bald mean?
I think I mentioned before with having fine hair and combing the hair over your head, if you go bald or if you are bald, you have no hair. And there's a slow process of losing your hair, especially among men, and that process is called going bald. So you can say, I'm going bald, I'm losing my hair, I'm thinning, which means the hair is getting thin on top, and that's happening to me at the moment, and you're losing your hair.
Isn't it curious how we go thin on top? So it's very typical for men to lose or start to lose the hair on the top of their head, but we keep the hair on the sides. And sometimes the hair on the sides around the ear, it stays exactly the same till the day we die, but we lose the hair on top.
I don't think we lose it. My theory is that the hair that was growing out of the top of our heads is pushed down to grow out of our nose and our ears. Because I've got a lot more hair on my ears and my nose than I did when I was in my 20s. So that hair is going somewhere, man.
It's going south, perhaps.
It's going south. It's going south.
I have not started going bald yet, but for quite a few years now, I've had a receding hairline. Now, that's slightly different. What's a receding hairline? Receding, a receding hairline.
To recede means to go back. So if your hairline or your hair is receding, it's gradually going back, which means the area of your head between your hair and your eyes or your eyebrows becomes bigger, becomes longer. That part of your head is your forehead. So your forehead gets longer because your hair is going back. It's receding.
I like the way the Spanish say that. Do you know how they say that, to have a receding hairline?
Retrasando?
No, tener entradas.
Really?
Tienes entradas.
I didn't know that.
You've got entrances into the hair. Tener entradas, I like that.
It's a lot more positive. I like it too. Of course, when you do get to the age where you start having a receding hairline, when you're going a bit bald, you often are also going grey. And that happens to ladies too. Although, of course, ladies do tend to dye their hair, I think, more often than men. So to go grey is when your hair starts to change colour because of age.
Having said that, Craig, you know, a fashion nowadays is, even for younger ladies, is to actually dye their hair grey. I've seen quite a few walking about Valencia.
But they're probably younger women,
but
younger women.
their hair might be blonde or brown, and they've dyed it grey to look grey. That's a new fashion these days.
Of course, if you do lose all your hair and you do go bald, one solution is to wear a wig. W-I-G. And a wig is false hair. It could also be called a hairpiece, although a hairpiece could be just a part of the hair on your head, not completely covering your hair, but only covering a small piece, a hairpiece, or a toupee, which is a French word, which also means a hairpiece.
Craig, you're a big fan of chocolate. It plays a very important part in your life. Imagine for some reason all chocolate, cacao, cocoa imports to Spain were banned. How would you react?
I would tear my hair out.
Literally?
So now we're talking about hair idioms, and our first hair idiom is to tear your hair out, which means to do something extreme in desperation. Imagine I was so angry and so stressed that I literally grabbed pieces of my hair and I tore with violence, I removed my hair, then I would be tearing my hair out.
So if you tear hair out, it doesn't mean either to cut or to shave in a kind of organized plan way. It just means to get your hands and pull it out by force, so very painful. When people fight as well, they might tear each other's hair out.
When I have problems with my computer, I get so frustrated I feel like tearing my hair out. There's another example. The opposite is to keep your hair on. When would you use that expression, to keep your hair on?
I would say it to someone if I want them to stay calm. If they're getting very stressed or very anxious or very disturbed about something, I might say, hey, keep your hair on. Keep your hair on. Don't be so stressed. Try to calm down. Keep your hair on.
If you're interested in remembering these hair idioms, remember you can see them on the webpage at inglespodcast.com/413. And feel free to write these idioms down and learn them and use them when you speak English, because they will grow on you.
Another one to grow like hair.
Now, to split hairs, imagine that you try to split or divide a hair. Hairs are obviously really, really small, very, very hard to divide along the length of a hair. When you're speaking about something that has a very small and unnecessary distinction, you could say to someone, oh, listen, I think you're splitting hairs. For example, Reza, if I said to you, do you think we should record this podcast in 128 millibytes per second or 114 millibytes per second? What's your opinion?
You're splitting hairs. I don't really think anyone's going to notice the difference, so it's an unnecessary question. It's splitting hairs.
Exactly, yeah. It's just minute details that don't matter, so I'm splitting hairs.
Craig, a hair of the dog, it could be one of Coco's. Coco the dog.
Hello, Coco.
But metaphorically, for you, what is hair of the dog?
It's having a drink the following day after you have drunk too much. So you wake up the next day, you have a hangover, and you say to your friend, hey, the best thing to recover from this hangover is to have a hair of the dog. So you have a drink of what you've previously drunk the day before or the night before, and that is supposed to help your hangover. I think the full expression is a hair of the dog that bit you.
Yeah.
Do you believe that a hair of the dog is a remedy for a hangover?
I think it's absolute rubbish. No. I think
It just gets you drunk again? It makes you drunk again?
You might, if you have enough to get drunk, you might not realize you're feeling bad again. But when that wears off, you're going to feel even worse, I think. Craig, a hair's breadth. For me, that means something very, 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 very nearly happened. I was a hair's breadth to death. I wasn't watching where I was going. I crossed the level crossing and a train came and it nearly ran me over. I was a hair's breadth away from that train. Yeah, I was very, very, very close to it.
Very close to doing it. Hair breadths away from something.
So the breadth of something, I'd better spell that, B-R-E-A-D-T-H. Breadth is the same as width. But for some reason in this expression, we prefer to use the word breadth. But it means width. how wide something is. So a hair's breadth is very often used to talk about a very, very short distance and often in a dangerous situation, right?
Yeah. If something nearly happens to you, but luckily it doesn't, something negative, you can say it was a close shave. We mentioned the word shave before, when you shave your beard, shave your head. So imagine I was walking along the road looking at my mobile phone and I crossed the road and a car nearly hit me. Nearly hit me. Just before it hit me, I stepped back onto the pavement. I could say that was a very close shave. I nearly had an accident, but luckily it didn't happen.
And I got one more hair idiom for you. If something makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, that means you feel very, very, very either nervous or frightened, some kind of really strange feeling. Quite often it will be to do with things like the supernatural. You think you've seen a ghost, something you can't explain, walk past you, and you feel the hair on the back of your neck stands up. It's normally you don't notice it, but suddenly you notice the hair is there. It's like full of static electricity because, wow, this is a really weird experience. The hair on the back of your neck is standing up.
Or maybe you go to have your hair cut and you sit down in the chair and you get the gown put over your body and you suddenly realise that the name of the barber shop is Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd, who killed people, in his barber shop.
Then the hair would stand up on the back of your neck. Reza, when you do go to have your hair cut in your hairdressers, and I know that's not very often, do you talk to your hairdresser? Do you have a conversation? What kind of things do you talk about? Or do you just sit there in silence?
I prefer to talk because I find that silence with a hairdresser is very awkward. It's an awkward silence. I mean, if somebody is close enough to be, touching your hair and, brushing up against your face, I mean, you can exchange a few words with them. You can. Yeah. It seems a bit odd to me to ignore that they're there. What do you think?
No, I agree. And I tend to go to the same hairdresser. So, I used to before I bought the clippers. And because I knew the hairdresser, we did have a conversation and we got to know each other quite well. Are you loyal to your hairdresser? Do you keep going back to the same one, or do you like to try different hairdressers in your area?
I have a group, 2 or 3 that I go back to, yeah. If I go to a new area and I need to get my hair cut, I'll find one that I like, or maybe 2. So I have a small group, a reduced group. What about you?
Well, I used to go to the same hairdresser regularly. I was very loyal to Chris. Hello, Chris, if you're listening. She's just along the street here. But obviously during the lockdown, she was closed. So ever since I bought these clippers, I've been cutting it myself. And yeah, I'm fairly happy with having quite short hair.
And Craig, have you ever worn a wig, or would you wear a wig under any circumstances?
Well, I'd be very conscious of people laughing at me if it was an obvious wig. That's a good question. I don't know if I would. I think I probably wouldn't. I'd just let myself go bald naturally. What about you?
Yeah, I think the same as you. I'd rather just go au naturel and go bald. But there are some gentlemen and some ladies who wear wigs sometime, but I'd rather just go bald.
Yeah. Go bald gracefully, grow old gracefully. Would you dye your hair?
Up to now, I've never considered it. What about you?
I've thought about it, but then I think it would look silly. Like I'd be a little embarrassed because, like, you know me, if I dyed my hair, you'd notice and I'd feel embarrassed about trying to look younger than I am. I think we should accept age gracefully and make the best of the situation and the body and the hair that we have.
And why do you think it is that women seem to dye their hair more than men?
I think they're more conscious of how they look, and I think they care more about their appearance. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I guess it's that. I guess you're right.
Well, we'd like to hear what you think. What's your opinion? Do you wear a wig? Are you going bald? How do you feel about your hairdresser, your haircuts, and anything to do with hair? We would particularly be interested to hear from people who work in hair salons, who are hairdressers. If we've forgotten any useful vocabulary, if you have any questions about this episode, please get in touch. Our preferred way to hear from you is by voice because we want you to practice your English. So do that by going to speakpipe.com, speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. And there you can send us a voice message of 90 seconds or less. If you prefer to reach us by email, you can reach me. I'm Craig, Craig, at inglespodcast.com. And you can reach Reza at his email address, belfastreza, R-E-Z-A, @gmail.com.
Some of you might be interested in some additional paid material to help you with your English studies. I recommend you have a look at the Mansion Ingles site. Go to store, store.mansioningles.net, and there on the online store you'll find a range of interesting material to help you further improve your English.
And before we go out the door today, we'd like to thank all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast on Patreon. You can join our Patreon program for as little as $1.20 per month. That's the minimum amount we accept, and that's including the tax. You get instant access by subscribing to recent transcriptions of the podcast, and of course I send the transcriptions every week to your email inbox. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/Ingles podcast to join our Patreon scheme. Reza, we can't unfortunately thank everybody, but who have been our most recent supporters on Patreon?
Yes, a big thank you for joining us recently to Juan Cabrerizo, Greta Fernandez, Juan Pablo Guerra Marin, Christian Colorado Bulbarella, Alberto Velasco Niña, Walter Jesus Contreras Hermosilla, Norman Foster, Jürgen Olsen, and Francisca.
Thank you to all of you who are supporting us on Patreon. And thank you very much for listening to us this week. Next week, we have no idea what we're going to be speaking about, but I promise you we will be back to speak about something. So please send us your ideas and suggestions for future podcasts. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends. And until next time, whether you cut your hair or not, have a wonderful week. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.